Let's Make Moves Miami was our third major in just as many weeks, but this one was especially high stakes, with one single Panda Cup qualifier spot on the line. So, who took it? And who took the title of the ruler of this godforsaken peninsula that we call Florida? We'll take you through that and everything else in our Let's Make Moves Miami recap. So, coming into the weekend, the pervasive thought was that this was going to be Steve's big weekend. There were 7 Steves seated in the top 70, including Jake, Yanni, Quandale Dinglingleton, and the 2 top seeds, Akala and Onan, who started the weekend by sweeping doubles. But how did that manifest itself in the real bracket? Let's find out. The weekend started off fast, with the PGstats upset thread working in high gear to track a handful of upset factor 4 or higher upsets in just the pool stage. Georgia Roy Main, no, not that one, or the other one, Spike, upset New England rising star Kiwi for an upset factor 5 win. Vivi, the New York hero in Lucario main, is mostly known for strong placements at New York City locals. But they were also able to get the biggest major win of their career with an upset factor 4 win over everybody's favorite low-tier hero, Peanut Little Mac. We also got to see some fan favorites get strong upsets on the loser side of the bracket, with Melee legend Mewtwo King taking an upset factor 2 win over Kiwi, and Shield Breaker / Steve Slayer extraordinaire Justin Byleth nabbed an upset factor 2 win of his own over Beast Mode Paul. Old school Florida Mega Man main Morpheus, what a tongue twister, handed Sean the blue pill and knocked the Captain Falcon out of the Matrix with an upset factor 4 win. Area 51 resident Teaser got a PGR win over Dark Wizzy, cooling off what has been an alarmingly hot streak from the Mario. Top 64 started on Sunday, which meant that from the moment it started to the second that the tournament was over, there were no breaks to be had. The character pool in Top 64 was, well, interesting, but I guess if you have a tournament in a region with a bunch of highly rated Steves, Roys, and Robs, you get what you pay for. The frenetic pace of day 1 continued when Yanni upset Jackal 3-1, Fatality clutched an amazing Game 5 set against Apollo Kage, and Florida Villager main Javi on Earth made the biggest upset of the tournament up to that point with an upset factor 7 win on Cola, who was fresh off of a top 8 finish at the Ludwig Invitational. Javi on Earth would go on to finish 17th, but with a win over Cola, he was able to give PGstats director Bobby Wasabi a run for his money as the best US Villager main for the time being. No bias here. The day 1 upsets led to some tough matchups on the loser side of Top 64. WaDi came up just 1 game short of a reverse 3-0 in a set against Capitancito. Syrup was able to knock Jazzo out of the tournament at 49th in a 5-game set, and Goblin was able to do the same to Supergirl Kells in a half-hour set that also went to 5 games. The round of 48 is where things really started to fall apart. We had to say goodbye to Andromeda and Sabric, who both play good, albeit underrepresented characters in Falco and Mii Brawler, and made it to 33rd with a +4 SPR in opposite ways. Andromeda lost to New York Duck Hunt Fawn in round 2 before winning 6 loser sets in a row to make it to 33rd, including wins on Ronichu, Geist, and Hector Salamanca. Sabric took advantage of Toast DQ and got upset wins over Kiki and Fortunato to put himself in winner's top 64, where he was then eliminated by Zomba and Syrup. Here's where we got to see the birth of 5 absolutely killer losers runs, any of which could have been the best of any other tournament. First, Dark Wizzy, who lost a teaser earlier but quietly had started to make waves in losers, beating Dark Blues to make it out of pools and then crushing Ducky, MPG, and Black Twins while also going Game 5 with E-King to make it to 13th, finishing 1 placement away from his 12th seed despite the early loss. Then we had Grape, who Canadian players will just not shut up about, and for good reason, who also made it to 13th despite losing to Cola in pools and being seeded 62nd. This comes directly after a 9th place finish at Riptide where he finished with a +5 SPR. And he absolutely proved that it wasn't a fluke here, with 5 wins in losers. He swept Wisdom, Kamex, and Tachyon, and then won 2 4-game sets against Yanni and Mugen before finally falling to Ned in a Game 5 nail-biter. Grape surely earned more respect from seeders and viewers this weekend, and he's a force to be reckoned with in upcoming majors. As Canada's second strongest soldier in this tournament, right behind Riddles, Grape carried the banner for Canadian excellence this weekend, and Twitter user LampShady pointed out that the top 5 Canadian entrants, Riddles, Grape, Soar, Black Twins, and Supergirl Kells, combined for an SPR of +8 and an upset factor of +9. Then, we have Chunky Kong, who, you'll remember, started the weekend by beating Quandale Dingalingleton. It wasn't until a loss to Jake, though, that he really kicked it into high gear. First, it was a 3-0 over WebJP, and then the actual biggest upset of the whole tournament, an upset factor 8 win over Cola, which sent him home at 25th. The off-stream set went to 5 games, but Chunky went monkey mode and Cola got 3-stocked in Game 5, putting Chunky Kong into the top 24. So, you may be asking, who awaited him to make top 16? Why, of course, it was Cola's teammate on Moist Esports, Aaron, who also happens to main Donkey Kong's smaller, cooler, more gun-wielding little buddy, Diddy Kong. No matter, 4 games later, and both PGRU Moist boys were on the outside looking in, with Chunky Kong locking himself into 13th. He would go on to lose to Apollo Kage, who we'll talk more about later, but he proved that he and DK were genuine metagame forces, and with all of the Steves, Roys, and Diddies in the meta, sometimes you just gotta throw it all away and return to Monkey. Up next is Jackal, who, after losing to Yanni, simply wiped the dirt off of his shoulder, handled his business, and beat Arsenic, Soar, Cosmos, and Dark Wizzy to finish 9th, where he lost to Tweak. Jackal is starting to get dangerously good, and according to him, it's nice that a 9th place finish at a major feels like a letdown. But this is only the beginning. And with each tournament, it gets harder and harder to doubt him, as he cuts up and destroys your favorite players by simply being better than they are. Wolf's tools are both diverse and strong, and if you play better than your opponent, you should probably win. And Jackal is simply making that happen. And finally, we have Jen. Jen was Area 51 on the first PGRU that took place in spring of 2019, which, in Smash terms, was a few geological epochs ago. After that, he never really competed as much, and even coming out of lockdown, he didn't really seem like his heart was in the game. This year is a little different, with Jen mostly just hitting majors in the Northeast or Mid-Atlantic regions and not really competing as much as you'd expect someone of his skill level to. He finally competed in his first tournament south of Virginia since CEO Dreamland 2020, and he didn't disappoint. After a loss to Riddles, he beat Radacious, Peebnut, Javi on Earth, and Fatality to finish 9th for a +3 SPR. Jen has the talent to do serious damage to the scene, and now that he's back, he's sponsored, and he's driven, he wants to put everyone on notice that his time is now. Wait, who did Jen lose to for 9th? Let's see. Hold on for a second, and... oh, there we go. It was someone by the name of... wait. Sorry, hang on. My kanji isn't the best. Cola? Wait, what the hell? So, what was going on in Winners then? Well, Riddles and Onin took care of business and moved on to Winners top 8. And Zomba took advantage of Cola's, absence to do the same. But oh good lord. Mudace played Mysterica into Yanni into Akala to make Winners side top 8 and absolutely crushed every single one of them. Akala's loss in Winners quarterfinals is his earliest loss ever at an open bracket major, and it wasn't just any loss. It was a 3-0. Mudace not only beat 2 of the best pilots of one of the scariest characters in the game, he absolutely obliterated them. He beat Yanni so bad in one game that the stream cut off, ostensibly to keep the people at home from seeing the double 0 to death that he pulled off down 1-0 against Yanni. So, now there are 8 players left. On Winner's side, we have Mudace, fresh off of a Steve gauntlet, and his opponent, Riddles, who plays Kazuya, a character that, has a similar reputation to Steve. Then, Onin versus Zomba. Then, on the losers, we have Akala versus Tweak, along with Apollo Kage versus Ned. Let's first talk about Apollo Kage versus Ned. The set itself wasn't all too exciting, with AK doing what he does best and blowing himself up over and over again to take the win over Ned. But the characters each are exciting in their own ways, with Ned bouncing back from a cold streak where he lost faith in Sephiroth, and Apollo Kage finally getting top 8 at a major for the first time ever. Ned used Sephiroth and PT very effectively on his run to make top 8. and proved that he's still on the rise despite some recent performances not up to his very lofty standards. Then, on the other side, we have Tweak and Akala. Akala won in 5 games, but there comes a point when you kind of just start to feel bad for Tweak. In the double elimination portion of his last 5 majors, his losses are Riddles, Akala, Gluttony, Big D, Riddles again, Light, Light again, Akala again, Cosmos, and then Light for a 3rd time. What more do you want from him? That's 7 losses to 3 players at 5 majors. There's an argument to be made for Riddles, Light, Akala, and Gluttony to be 4 of the top 6 players on the planet, but then again, when you're at the very highest level, sometimes you just need to simply be better. This game is brutal, and 6 of his last 7 sets against Light, Gluto, Riddles, and Akala have gone to 5 games. But the bracket doesn't care about how close your losses were, only that you lost, and that loss sent Tweak home at 7th place at Let's Make Moves Miami. Mudace continued to be the hero of Smash Twitter, beating Riddles' Kazuya and Terry in 4 not very close games where he just became an impregnable wall. He used floats, turnips, and general defensive tools, and then combined that with otherworldly punishes to make any interaction a losing one for the fighting game characters. And from here on out, every single set would either be a nail-biter or a blowout. Onin beat Zomba in a 5-game set that was close enough that you could probably count 3 or 4 times where Zomba could have closed the set out if he had just been a little bit faster or in a little different position. That sent him down to the loser's bracket, where he had to fight Akala in what was functionally the exact same set. And when Zomba started to make a Game 5 comeback, even missing a rotor arm that could have ended it all right there by just a few pixels, there was hope. But Akala came back to the stage, got set up, and finished the New Yorker off with a powered minecart that sent him home at 5th. This makes the 3rd tournament where Zomba has been 1 set away for qualifying for the Panda Cup finale. And because everyone except Akala, who finished above him, had already qualified, it was a win and you're in. But Zomba, much like Tweak, just keeps getting unlucky, and just needs 1 more hit to go their way before they can finally make it right to the top. Riddles beat Apollo Kage in a 3-1 in a pretty tame set, all things considered, but then got pasted by Akala in loser semis to end up in his old home of 4th place. That set up a final 3 of DLC Slayer Mudace versus Onin and Akala, the 2 Steves who kicked off the week by winning doubles. Mudace ended up suffering the same fate as Zomba, losing in 5 games to both Akala and Onin. Every game was close, every hit mattered, and in the end, the kids just outdid Mudace by 1 or 2 interactions and sent him home at 3rd in front of his home crowd. Mudace continues to impress, becoming one of 5 American players to take a set over Akala, and adding that to an impressive slate of wins over players like Spargo, Riddles, Mars, and DeBuzz. He has issues with hand pain, which can make him inconsistent at times, but he works harder than anyone, and when he's on, he can genuinely beat any player on the earth. Let's let him tell you about his run though, because who better to take you through it than the man himself in a video that he posted after his run.
And then I thought, Steve, Kazuya, like Terry, I guess, and then Steve, like, guys, I can only do so much. Like, can I get some reinforcements? Like, can someone else do it? Like, I can't do this by myself, y'all.
That left us with Onin and Akala, and despite Onin being on winner's side, not even his former mains, Shulk or Robin, could save him from a 6-0 delivered by Akala at their second meeting in 2 weeks. Now, we know what you're thinking. You're going to go into the comments and say something mean about Steve, and while yes, you have the right idea, leaving a comment, you should probably also like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on all of the new videos we're going to have for you. Onin and Akala were the number 1 and 2 seeds going into this tournament. Seeing them in grand finals is not a surprise, or a sign of the coming apocalypse. While only 26 of the top 128 players at LMMM placed their seed, Onin and Akala were 2 of them, and Akala was able to take home the trophy at the event where he was the number 1 seed. Steve is a great character, and the players who pilot him are just as great. But in a tournament with 7 top Steve mains and the top 2 of them being the first 2 seeds, it makes sense that we'd probably see him in grand finals. And It's fitting that Akala won, in part thanks to some of the strongest anti-Steve tech we've seen yet in a brutal 6-0 Grands, even if that was performed by another Steve. This weekend, we also got to see creative uses of anti-Steve tech that other players such as Mutace and Tweak were able to pull off pretty effectively. And we're in an interesting situation, where every character has some things they can do against Steve to keep themselves in the game. Steve's uniqueness means that the options afforded to him and his opponents are always changing. And the arms race between players finding anti-Steve tech and Steve players finding the weaknesses in those options is fascinating. A perfect example of this would be Tweak using Diddy Kong up B to break Steve's blocks on stage, and then Akala reacting to that by putting TNT behind the block, making the option not worth it. Steve's inclusion in the game has forced Smash players to think outside the box to handle the game's most unique character of all time. Onin and Akala utilize Steve's tools very differently, with Akala using lots and lots of down air, whereas Onin will usually close out stocks with F smashes and back airs, and both players just continue to get better and better. This weekend, Akala went 12-1, with wins on Onin, Mutace, Riddles, Zomba, and Tweak, and proved that he can get over any pressure that's thrown his way. If you can win in front of the raucous Florida crowd, you can probably win anywhere. Onin's wins weren't as strong in a vacuum because he didn't have to go through the loser's gauntlet that Akala did, but his wins over Anathema, Black Twins, Zomba, and Mutace prove that he's among the best players in the United States, and is improving faster than anyone else in that conversation. Akala's victory means that according to Liquipedia, the United States has a major drought of 11 tournaments, and nobody that lives south of the Mason-Dixon line has won a major since Colo won CEO 2021. The US has a chance, though, to get one back in 2 weeks at Port Priority 7 in the Pacific Northwest. Stay tuned for more coverage on that, the upcoming Melee Summit 14, and everything else going on in the world of Smash. Thanks for watching. My name is Last, and I do so hope you've enjoyed this video, and, as always, I'll see you next time.